All right, so what's up, family? I hope this video finds you doing well. We all got our own sets of challenges going on nowadays. Always been that way. Um, how we choose to deal with those challenges determines what type of experience we're going to have going forward. But what I want to talk about is LeBron James, and the reason I want to speak on this is because I think that there's something that a lot of people haven't thought about in regards to the situation where he tweeted something that he probably shouldn't have tweeted. Well, there's no probably about it. It was out of line. It was out of place. But I want to talk about the reasons why that tweet popped up the way it did. One of the reasons is probably pretty obvious, but it bears some clarification. And the other reason is probably not so obvious. Now, this is just my observations. Uh, Go ahead and let you know now that this is not a LeBron James bashing video. Um, so if that's what you're looking for, it's probably not going to be a great video to watch. Uh, but it's also not a LeBron James as a hero uh, video either. And if you have an issue, if you take exception to one black person saying something, anything negative about another black person, I've seen that in the comment section. It's kind of weird, but apparently, if you're black, you can't say anything negative about another black person or anything that can be construed as negative. My position on that is a little bit different. I think you should call it how you see it and just tell the truth. I mean, if we don't address issues strictly because we don't want to say something negative to someone who's of the same race that we are, we're doing ourselves and everybody else an injustice. So I don't ascribe to that. I refuse to ascribe to that. So if you have a problem with that, it's probably not going to be a good video for you either. But anyway, back to LeBron James. So the tweet, the officer that in the Mak'hia Bryant issue, the officer that shot her shortly after that, LeBron James thought it was a good idea to put out a tweet about the officer with the text saying, "You're next." So the first question, the first obvious question is, what does that mean? You're next. Are you saying that the chicken will come home to roost? Are you saying that justice will be served at some point? Or is it a threat? What is it really? And that is what I think is important as to the way that it was addressed. Just bear with me for a second if you notice that part really wasn't addressed. He took the tweet down and he said that it was being used to create more hate. But let's back up for a second. Why was the tweet made in the first place? Some people, it might be obvious to them, but for others, maybe not so much. But it was an example of acting before thinking, acting before having all the facts, um, acting before you could really size up a situation. It was a knee jerk, instinctual reaction. But why? What it does is it gives us a little bit of insight into uh, his thought process. There was an assumption made without all the facts. Um, that anytime there's an interaction between a young black person and law enforcement, or any law enforcement action that results in the death of a black person, that law enforcement is at fault. Um, and it was an attack on black people as a race. He just immediately responded or reacted with a tweet that gave the impression that there was an innocent black person and a racist white cop that made a decision that it was a good idea to kill her. Even in this climate that we have today, with everything that's going on, if you think about a police officer, that's the last thing they want to have to deal with. So that's the last thing they want to be involved with. They want to stay as far away from that as possible because the repercussions are severe. Um, to the extent that even getting a fair trial or a balanced trial is nearly impossible, just because of the mob mentality we have right now. That's a price you will pay um, for doing anything that even gives the appearance that you could be racist. But that's why he put the tweet out. It was just a knee jerk reaction. Um, as soon as he started getting that back pressure, as soon as somebody checked him on it, he pulled the tweet down. What I wasn't satisfied with was the explanation. Because in the explanation, he says that it's creating more hate, as if it was all being misinterpreted, or the powers that be, the other forces in play, were taking advantage of what he said, twisting it, and using it to drive a negative narrative. What bothers me the most is that was a that was an excuse. That was dancing around the issue. That was a refusal to deal with what occurred. He should have acknowledged the point. At that point, he should have acknowledged the fact that it probably wasn't a really good idea. We all make mistakes. The difference is how we address those mistakes, whether or not we are capable of admitting that what we said might not have been the best thing to say. And I think had he done that, uh, it would have quickly been forgiven. It would have, it would have helped his image, really. I might have spoke too soon. I might have spoke without having all the information. Maybe that wasn't the right thing to say. In everyone's eyes, they would have looked at that a little bit differently. But what I saw was just an attempt to try to skirt around the issue, not address the fact that I messed up, and him, along with the media, attempting to move forward as if it was no big deal. But it was a big deal. It was a huge deal. It was a very big deal, because that demonstrates the climate that we have in this country right now, the assumptions that are being made without having all of the information. But that being said, that's an easy one. You know, what I want to talk about is the part that you don't really hear being discussed. But if you know how things work, you know it had to be there. Think back to, take Muhammad Ali, for instance, right? Muhammad Ali. Of course, it was a different time, and there was a lot of real racism, a lot more real racism at the time. But it's easy to overlook the fact that uh, when you think about it, Muhammad Ali was pushed in a direction. He was a boxer. He was a fighter. That was his primary aim at first. And then you saw other forces come into play who had an agenda, and knew that he would be a great tool to help further that cause. In this case, look at Malcolm X, right? Oh, by the way, I figured I could throw this in here. Did you notice how when Malcolm X um, had this hardline mentality about race, when he seemed to hate white folks just as much as they hated him, he was okay. The minute he had a change of heart, started to see things a little bit differently, he got assassinated. You ever thought about that? Anyway, back to the video. It just seems odd to me how every time you have a young black person who is achieving some type of success in an area, a mainstream area, you have others that come out and try to saddle them with more and more responsibility. Now, don't get me wrong, we all have a social responsibility, and the lion's share of that responsibility lies in our example, what we do, how we carry ourselves. But you have a group of people who, for them, it's not enough for you to follow your dreams, be successful in your dreams, set an example, show the world what's possible. They want to turn you into a mouthpiece. We'll call them handlers, per se. And it can be direct. It can be someone directly in your ear, or it could even be a tension that is created, an expectation that is created that makes one feel like they owe something to other people who look like them. I would say that what you owe um, to people who look like you, if anything, is to set a good example. Um, Try to be the best man that you can be. But some people, they will put pressure on celebrities as if these celebrities are expected to responsible for speaking out on specific causes. And if you don't do that, then in a sense, you're just betraying your people. Look at the difference between Michael Jordan and LeBron James off the basketball court. You never heard those type of things really been spoken about by Michael Jordan. He wasn't being a mouthpiece for a social cause. He was about his business. Some people judge him harshly for that. Some people say he did the right things, neither here nor there. But you see a marked difference between the two. And a lot of people that I've had conversations with will say that that's what makes LeBron James the better athlete, the better representation, because he speaks out on these causes. He speaks out for, quote unquote, his people, the black race. So he's looked upon as a leader in that sense, even though he's a basketball player. But he's looked at as a leader, a warrior in that sense. We could debate that all day because it's true that the example that you set does matter. But at the same time, uh, you got to kind of take a good look at what your responsibilities in that area are. The point I'm getting to is if you look at LeBron James, where his comeuppance, very young man, talented on the basketball court, right into stardom, right into the money, has had a great life. What you end up with is looking at a person who talks about a lot of issues that really don't show up in their own life. The fact the exact opposite is weird, but it, he talks about the system being broken and the presidents and the disadvantage and everything else, and it's almost like his life, his outcomes are, well, they directly contradict that. I mean, have you ever really thought about how it's kind of odd for someone who has so much going for them, been blessed so much, to constantly be talking about negative situations? And when I look at that, I think to myself, he didn't become LeBron James didn't become LeBron James just because he was tall. He didn't become LeBron James just because he was athletic. He didn't become LeBron James just because uh, a type of intelligence on the basketball court. All of these things are necessary in order to be successful, in order to be that level of a player, that caliber of a player. Um, but the most prevalent, the most important thing that one would have to possess to reach that level is a work ethic. It takes work. You can't tell me that man had spent hours and hours and hours of shooting, hours and hours and hours of dribbling, hours and hours and hours of perfecting the skills necessary to be successful on the basketball court. So it would seem to me that the message that you would relay is that through hard work and dedication, you can achieve your goals. You can become what you want to become. Uh, you can change your life in America if you're willing to put forth the effort. It would seem to me that you would highlight the opportunities that are available and highlight the potential that people have if they were able to focus to the extent that you have. it would seem to me that your aim would be to address the factors that are contributing to the negative outcomes within your community. So it's just weird for me to see someone in that position who has achieved so much preach a victimhood, uh, victim mentality. Someone who, every time they open their mouth, it's always blame, 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 pointing a finger. It's always sign language: shame, insults, guilt, and a need to be right. Always. It doesn't that seem odd to you? How someone in that position would come from that mindset? It's completely inconsistent with their results, their outcomes. I don't know. I just think that he's in a perfect position to address some of these things rather than pointing fingers and um, casting blame. You have a lot of people out there who think that it was pretty much handed to him, that he was just, he was born that way. He was gifted, and that's that. Didn't take a whole lot of work, or it was just easy. And those people are right to become victims when you preach a victimhood mentality. And I've seen it. I've been privy to it. I've felt it. I have I have conversations with people who will blame race for everything. You can't have a conversation without someone bringing up the topic of race. It's just this stinking thinking that they can't get past. They cannot. And I'm talking intelligent people, not dummies, but intelligent people. But their anger and the resentment is burned so deep that they can't get past that. And oddly enough, a lot of it is justified. A lot of it is justified. I mean, you start quoting facts and figures, and guess what? A lot of them are correct. They are actually correct. This happened in this year. This happened in that year. This happened in that year. And then you start hearing the group words. They did this. They did that. And that's where everything starts to fall apart. The conversation, an intelligent person goes from a factual conversation and then moves from fact to emotion and goes into an us versus them conversation, completely discounting the individual involved, the individual responsibility, individual differences. You cannot type someone by the color of their skin. You can't do it. It's impossible. But we keep hearing that rhetoric over and over and over again. And unfortunately, it's people who there's a lot of people who put themselves in leadership positions who will turn right around and preach that instead of focusing on the underlying factors. So I'm going to add this last part, and that'll be the end of the video. But I think this is very, very important. And all of these conversations, and even as evidenced by LeBron James's tweets and that mentality, you have a belief in a system that is designed to harm black folks, systemic racism. If you think that there are cops out there hunting black people, then it's probably a good idea to make sure that we train people, we teach people, we educate people in ways that will assist them in avoiding negative interactions with police in the first place, rather than uh, giving blanket excuses to negative outcomes. But that's just me. No, the system's not perfect. Um, yes, there's a lot of work to be done. I just think that the people who are in a position to influence others should probably point that out. LeBron James didn't get where he was by accident, where he is by accident. LeBron James put in a lot of hard work. Um, maybe he should think about that. And maybe that should be the message. You can change the game if you're willing to work hard enough, rather than the system is stacked against you such a way there is no hope. That sounds kind of strange coming from a rich man living a pretty good life in the United States of America. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Take care, guys, and peace.